Moses and Aaron approached Pharaoh. They said, God, the God of Israel, says, "Free my people so that they can hold a festival for me in the wilderness." Pharaoh said, "And who is God that I should listen to him and send Israel off? Why on earth would you suggest the people be given a holiday? Back to work." Pharaoh took immediate action. He sent down orders to the slave drivers. "Don't provide straw for the people for making bricks, as you have been doing. Make them get their own straw and make them produce the same number of bricks, no reduction in their daily quotas." Moses went back to God and said, "My master, why are you treating this people so badly? And why did you ever send me? From the moment I came, things have only gotten worse. And rescue? Does this look like rescue to you?" God said to Moses, "Now you'll see what I'll do to Pharaoh. With a strong hand, he'll send them out free." Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did what God had commanded. Aaron threw down his staff and it turned into a snake. Pharaoh called in his magicians. They did the same thing by their spells. They threw down their staffs and they all turned into snakes. But then Aaron's staff swallowed their staffs. Yet Pharaoh was as stubborn as ever. He wouldn't listen, just as God had said. God said to Moses, "Go and meet Pharaoh as he goes down to the river. Say to him, 'This is how you'll know that I am God. I am going to take my staff and strike the Nile River. The water will turn to blood.'" Moses and Aaron did exactly as God commanded them. Aaron raised his staff and hid the water. All the water in the Nile turned into blood. The fish died, and the Egyptians couldn't drink the water. But the magicians did the same thing with their incantations. Still, Pharaoh remained stubborn, as God had said. And all the Egyptians had to dig inland from the river for water because they couldn't drink from the Nile. The next day, as God commanded, Aaron stretched his staff over the waters, and a mob of frogs came up and covered the country. But again, the magicians did the same thing. Pharaoh called in Moses and Aaron and said, "Pray to God to rid us of these frogs. I'll release the people so they can make their sacrifices and worship God." Moses prayed about the frogs, and they died off. Houses, courtyards, fields, all free of frogs. They piled the frogs in heaps. The country reeked of dead frogs. But when Pharaoh saw that he had some breathing room, he got stubborn again, just as God had said. The next day, as God commanded, Aaron struck the dust of the earth with his staff. It turned into gnats all over people and animals. The magicians tried to produce gnats with their spells, but this time they couldn't do it. They said to Pharaoh, "This is God's doing." But Pharaoh was stubborn and wouldn't listen, just as God had said. God said to Moses, "Tell Pharaoh I'll release swarms of flies. The house and even the ground under their feet will be thick with flies. But where my people live will be a sanctuary. That will show you that I am God in this land. I'll make a sharp distinction between your people and mine." And God did just that. Thick swarms of flies were everywhere. Pharaoh said, "All right, I'll release you to go and sacrifice to your God in the wilderness. Only don't go too far. Now pray for me." Moses said, "I will pray that tomorrow the flies will leave, but don't change your minds about releasing us." Moses left Pharaoh and prayed to God. God did what Moses asked. He got rid of the flies. But Pharaoh became stubborn once again and wouldn't release the people. God said, "Tell Pharaoh I will come down hard on your livestock, striking them with a severe disease. But not one animal that belongs to the Israelites will die." And the next day, God did it. All the livestock died, but not one animal of the Israelites died. But Pharaoh stayed stubborn. He wouldn't release the people. God said to Moses and Aaron, "Take fistfuls of soot from a furnace and throw it into the air right before Pharaoh's eyes. It will become a film of fine dust all over Egypt and cause sores, an eruption of boils on people and animals. So they did. God hardened Pharaoh in his stubbornness. He would not listen. God said to Moses, "Tell Pharaoh, I am going to strike you with the full force of my power so you'll realize that there's no one like me in all the earth. Tomorrow, I'm sending a terrific hailstorm." Moses lifted his staff to the skies, and God sent cracks of thunder and hail shot through with lightning strikes. Everything exposed out in the fields, people and animals and crops, was smashed. Except for where the Israelites lived, there was no hail there. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. "I've sinned for sure this time. God is in the right, and I'm in the wrong. Pray to God. We've had enough of God's thunder and hail. I'll let you go." Moses said, "As soon as I'm out of the city, I'll stretch out my arms to God. The hail will end, so you'll know that the land is God's land." But when Pharaoh saw that the storm had stopped, his heart turned rock hard. He refused to release the Israelites. Moses and Aaron said to Pharaoh, "How long are you going to refuse? Tomorrow I'm bringing locusts. They'll devour everything left over from the hailstorm, and they'll invade every house in Egypt." Then he turned on his heel and left Pharaoh. Moses stretched out his staff over the land of Egypt. God let loose an east wind. It blew that day and night. By morning, the east wind had brought in the locusts. They ate everything, every blade of grass, every piece of fruit, anything that the hail didn't get. Pharaoh had Moses and Aaron back in no time. He said, "I've sinned against your God and against you. Overlook my sin one more time. Pray to your God to get me out of this. Get death out of here." Moses left Pharaoh and prayed to God. God reversed the wind. A powerful west wind took the locusts and dumped them into the Red Sea. There wasn't a single locust left in the whole country. But God made Pharaoh stubborn as ever. He still didn't release the Israelites. God said to Moses, "Stretch your hand to the skies. Let darkness descend." A darkness so dark you can touch it. Thick darkness descended. Nobody could see anybody. For 3 days, no one could so much as move, except for the Israelites. They had light where they were living. But God kept Pharaoh stubborn as ever. He wouldn't agree to release them. God said to Moses, "I'm going to hit Pharaoh one final time, and then he'll let you go." Then Moses confronted Pharaoh. "At midnight, I will go through Egypt, and every firstborn child will die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh to the firstborn of the slave girl, wailing will erupt all over. Lament such as never been and never will be again. But against the Israelites, there won't be so much as a dog's bark, so that you'll know that God makes a clear distinction between Egypt and Israel." Moses, seething with anger, left Pharaoh. God said to Moses and Aaron, "This is to be the first month of the year for you. And the 10th of this month, each man is to take a lamb for his family. Your lamb must be a healthy male, 1 year old. Select it from either the sheep or the goats. Keep it penned until the 14th day of the month, and then slaughter it at dusk. Then take some blood and smear it on 2 doorposts and the lintel of the house in which you'll eat it. You are to eat the meat roasted in the fire that night along with bread, made without yeast and bitter herbs. Don't eat any of it raw or boiled in water. Make sure it's roasted, the whole animal. Don't leave any of it until morning. If there are leftovers, burn them in the fire. And here is how you are to eat it. Be fully dressed with your sandals on and your stick in your hand. Eat in a hurry. It's the Passover to God. I will go through the land on this night and strike down every firstborn and bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am God. The blood will serve as a sign on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. No disaster will touch you." The Israelites then went and did what God had commanded. They did it all. At midnight, God struck every firstborn. Pharaoh got up that night, he and everyone else in Egypt, and wept. There wasn't a house in which someone wasn't dead. Pharaoh called in Moses and Aaron that very night and said, "Get out of here and be done with you. Go, worship God on your own terms and bless me." The Israelites had lived in Egypt 430 years. At the end, to the very day, God's entire army left Egypt. God kept watch all night as he brought them out. Because God kept watch, all Israel, for all generations, will honor God by keeping watch this night, a watch night.